Hi everyone. First of all, I want to apologize for the delay uploading this lecture. I had some technical issues, but here it is. This week we are going through the everyday life and transformations in developing regions and how they affect people's life and quality of life. This lecture is based heavily on these readings. I know they are difficult because they encompass a lot of situations and a highly complex topic. I will not do the readings for you, but provide some context that I hopefully will make going to them easier. The idea or the objective of the author is to take a closer look to some of the key aspects that shape everyday living conditions in developing regions and how they relate with social, cultural, and historical factors. For this, they propose a structure of components of everyday life from represent in this nested structure where the social life is nested inside first in a first level the household, the direct family. These households typically are part of a larger community of people who share that located in vicinity, share similar histories and living conditions, and all of this is wrapped inside a social capital structure, which could be as the set of norms and customs and conventions ruling social life that builds the fabric that allows these relationships to take place. So in more detail, when we focus on the household, and the authors mention it as a collection of individuals, but who are treated as a single decision-making unit in terms of production and consumption decisions, how they allocate their resources, and what are their objectives and roles in the society. This is the basic survey unit in social research. In theoretical economics, the individual is the basic condition, but in practice and doing field work, it's very difficult to access or to understand the decision-making individual if it's not embedded or shaped by their own position in the household. This, however, has a key limitation, which is as by taking the household as a whole unit, it can minimize or bypass power dynamics and differences based on aspects like the age, their gender, their economic role in the household, or being dependent or breadwinner, and can result in dynamics of oppression or disadvantage for some members of the household. The second level is the community. Beyond the household is the direct vicinity, the village, or the neighborhood where people carry out their daily lives. The way this community looks like plays a heavy role defining the types of relationships, processes, and living conditions around the world. And it is very important because even if there are we see here different developing regions, South America, Africa, or Southeast Asia. We see that over time, while South America has urbanized a lot, there is still many countries in Africa and in India where rural life is still prevalent. And this has implications in the terms of not just where people live, but how they live. Here we see a closer look to the differences between Latin America and the Caribbean and Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia in terms of the share of the people living in urban areas, which of course has deep implications on the different social and economic processes. And it is important to keep in mind that the village and community are not necessarily the same. Even if the village is an administrative and physical place and bounded entity, the community is more based on social and cultural relationships and shared attributes. I include this photo, which is a group of children in Palestine after their homes were bombed. So there, even you see, even if the buildings are not there anymore, there is still this community. And this is an example of how it is important to distinguish between the direct community and the village. And third is the social capital, which is the result of durable networks of relationships and mutual recognitions between people, as Bourdieu defined it in 85, and is conformed by the institutions that are just the set of norms that regulate social laws, determine customs, agreement, belief systems. These here, for example, we see a quinceañera party in Cuba where the customs and the traditions and the social structure define the types of rituals that are carried out in this specific location. This table just synthesizes the different components of the social capital from the relations of trust and reciprocity and exchange between the members through the common rules, norms, and sanctions that are in place, and the types of connectedness and networks that are existing among them. But these components have positive effects like facilitating cooperation and exchanges, lowering transaction costs by promoting transparency and building repeated relationships, setting the set of norms that regulate social use and allow to improve reliability, and provide access to certain members by providing like contacts and mutual assistance. But also this, when taken too far, can also have some negative effects, including the unlimited capacity to adapt and to change facing new situations, or locking up harmful relationships and obligations that can even result in a limiting of the social mobility and freedoms if the existing norms play a too pervasive role. And of course, when all access and benefits are depending on the contacts and the acquaintances. This results in an exclusion of non-members, or or maybe the promotion of those who are not the highest skills but have the best connections. Over a person's life, there are also many changes in their life, from the role that each one plays during the different stages of their lifetime, including the way income and necessities are satisfied, through the obligations and duties and limitations that they face, and including the capability, for example, to save and to create some additional capital. Also, during the lifespan of some person, there are changes in the norms, in the customs, in the economic and political conditions that they might not be directly related with the individual, but with their larger environment, and that can affect the many aspects of human life, including, for example, who takes care of the younger, the older, and how wealth is generated and transmitted between different generations. Now we will think about the role of modernization in this story, and how this process has many dimensions and affects many aspects of life, including the production processes, how spaces are occupied and transformed to serve different purposes, what kinds of how property over land and means of production is defined, how extended are the markets, what types of government exist, and the role that culture and customs play in this under this scenario. Now we go a little bit deeper, conceptualizing modernization and modernism, and trying to approach why it's so important and into our discussion. First, it is important to see it as the understanding of models of social life that is derived from European worldviews generated mostly during the Enlightenment and after that, in which several aspects play a key role. First, abandoning, shifting from faith-based approaches and explanations of the world to a more rational, secular, and expert knowledge based on science. As you might recall, the Enlightenment included also promotion of sciences and a breakaway from the grip of the Catholic Church and other churches, and where the reason, think about Descartes, was supposed to be the main driver of change and the main aspect to take into account when taking decisions. Also, during this period is when the consolidation of nation states and later the development of liberal democracies that included the existence of a legislative and an executive body and the limits to power that break again with a past of absolutism and other forms of government, including tribal or divine based, or where the power is provided by the divinity. The role of private property. This coincides with the enclosure of the commons, the end of feudalism, and the establishment of the private property by individuals as the main type of property on land and production factors, and the development of an increasingly complex and sophisticated governance systems and diplomacy and rules that govern the relationships between nations. This, of course, was promoted through narratives of the superiority of Western civilization, by contrast to backward and primitive approaches or ways to organize life that were criticized as even superstitious, for example, and not rational. This is a great example of what I'm explaining here. This is a cartoon from the late 19th century during the scramble for Africa. This was published on a German newspaper that contrasts the situation in Namibia in Africa before the European settlers came, where it's kind of chaos and all the animals and people are doing whatever they please. And when the German man came, organized everyone from the animals to the vegetation to the even to the people, where each one was put said to respond to a specific way of understanding and organizing a social life. All these components, including the role of science, the role of nation states, the limits to the political power of the sovereign, and the promotion of private property, are all the components or the key drivers for the consolidation of a globalized capitalist. The interesting thing here is that this modernity that we see, that it's the result of different political processes and a specific worldview, has been presented as like the rational, optimal, natural way to do things, and this narrative that justifies a specific world order, worldview, where European nations and other European nations first, and then the United States are deemed to be like to lead the world because as the Western states, they know better how to do things than the others, has also been used to promote specific ideological and political and economic agendas that favor those same powers. Finally, I like to synthesize what I just been saying, some key takeaways. So first, at the local level, life conditions are not only the result of individual choices, but largely context dependent. Keeping this in mind is key to analyze different situations, as they show that in the readings. Living conditions can and do change over the lifespan of the persons. Unequal power relationship shape the outcomes and roles of the members of the household or community. But community does not just refer to a specific geographical location, but to the set of networks, relationships, norms, and customs that are built over time and provide identity to the groups. Social capital plays a key role as the fabric that holds human groups together and builds shared identities and facilitate transactions and the building of, yeah, facilitates transactions. And modernization is not a linear, homogeneous process, but has many stages and can take different aspects in different places, and refers to the transformation of social relationships and economic and political systems associated with capitalist dynamics.